Whoa, holy crap, I'm actually doing this. Well, how's it going, everybody? It's your old boy here, Lego Warrior, back again with a strange live stream. I know, I usually don't, I think this is the first time I ever done a live stream, you know, in IRL with an actual camera front to face. I'm very nervous, I don't know how well it's going to turn out. Well, as you can tell, I am in my review style clothes. It's very strange. Already people are coming in like crazy, like what is going on? WTF, hello everybody. So this is going to be a very different thing. So let me start with, if you can see from the weird thumbnail, I'm of course going to be doing all the movies of Spider-Man from 2002 to 2014, all live here. Now here's why I'm doing this. I was going to record this today. It was all planned out. I think I mentioned this in my E3 video. I write scripts for my videos now. Why? Because when I do in real life videos, I get very nervous. I'm a very awkward person in real life. You'll get to realize throughout my videos. If it's not for my editing, I sound annoying as fuck. So I write scripts for you guys. I love to give you guys the best content I can for this channel. It's something I do for fun, but if I can get something clearly more entertaining to you guys, I'll do it. As you can tell, my voice is messing up already. So, I was going to record this, but the problem was, so my family was my family was around the entire day for me to almost bother me and not be able to do the video here, because you guys know I don't feel comfortable. I know it's normal for YouTubers to do the vlog thing, have their families involved. Sometimes it's fun. I don't like doing that. I like doing stuff on my own. I like being in my little personal space, as secluded and awkward as I am. So I thought, seeing a lot of people are doing Spider-Man videos, I was gonna plan to do this tomorrow, because technically I am seeing the new Spider-Man Homecoming, which is why I want to do this special review on my birthday, July 8th, which happy birthday to me, just saying. No, I'm just kidding, no. So, but technically the movie comes out tomorrow, so I was like, alright, I'll just get the video done and get it out today. But so much stuff happened that I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to get it out. But I thought, you know what I do so well, and why I love them so much? You guys realize when I do Let's Plays, and not funny montages or moments or highlights of games I play with my friends, I do them live. Why? Because, forgive me, that's another point I'll get to eventually. I'm not really good at the whole commentating thing when it's completely raw footage. I'm terrible at it. If you guys see my earlier videos, I'm honest about it. I progress like every other YouTuber. We all start shitty when we start YouTube for the first time, and we progress throughout our years. But I'm not the best at it. I get very nervous. I'm a very awkward person. I want to admit this to you guys because, you know, I'm not shy. I'm not the cool kid in school you guys all expect. I'm very awkward and stuff. Of course, I know a lot of people. I know my group of friends. I'm a really nice, happy person, but I just get very nervous on camera. So I thought, why the hell not? Let's do something fun, because what I do when I stream games, it's funny as hell, because when I mess up, it's hilarious because, oh, I'm shit. So, it makes it almost into a joke, and I can get it all well, and I don't have to worry, because, like, well, it's live, you know, that happens. So I thought, let's do a movie review live. I've never done this before, and I saw some interesting videos that now, of course, YouTube allows you to record live, which, as I can see, some of you guys are saying that dank camera quality. It ain't the best, but it's a new, I guess you can call it, channel experiment I want to try. I usually only do gaming videos live, but I thought, let's try something different. Who says I can't do a review live? I'm wearing my leather jacket in the worst time of the season possible of summer. I'm gonna die in here. That's why I have my little air conditioner around. I'm gonna be reviewing all Spider-Man movies. It's already been 3 minutes long. Let's get this started. I might use my script for notes just in case I forget about something. So, Spider-Man, as we all know, is a ginormous franchise. We've all loved it since the beginning of the time, since he was created back in the 60s, if I'm correct, by the one and only Stan Lee himself. And ever since, we've been wanting to get a movie from him, and we finally got it in 2002 with the fantastic Sam Raimi director, who back in the day I'm pretty sure directed the Evil Dead movies, which I'll check all my stuff and you guys can just call me out if I ever mess up anything. Let me just mention that. By the way, forgive me, my voice is messed up, which is another reason why I'm doing this right now today, because I might wake up tomorrow like I was going to record this eventually and just, my voice might be fucked up and I can ruin the entire video, like, oh, I can't even speak. So it's might as well better do it today. Let's have some fun. So, Sam Raimi directed the first 3 Spider-Man movies, 1, 2, and 3, with actor Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker. It was a big time for us because, if you guys don't know, back in the 90s, especially around that period of time, what people don't realize nowadays, us millennials so spoiled, is that, me especially reading through history, you know, to keep myself updated, we went through a lot of shitty comic book movie phase. What I mean specifically is, when comic book movies, just like any other form of entertainment that's being put into movies, the biggest problem is, of course, they're very different. The only easiest thing to really transfer into movie form is a book, because it's kind of already, you know, your script, you got your story, you got your characters. The only thing you really have to do is, you know, shorten it up a bit. But every other form of entertainment is usually very different, has its own special style, and has its own audience to target, and its own style, you know, to make it interesting compared to like video games. That's why we really can't get a really good video game movie, because directors don't understand to change the style enough a bit, in my opinion, of how to get it well into a movie. But comic books were sort of easier, of course, because, you know, it's a comic book, so that's already a good head start. Someone might come in, so that might ruin the entire stream. I might have to end it live. Let me just say that. If somebody comes in, I'm sorry. Like I say, I do these lives for a reason. I mess up. Something can go wrong, but I'll be able to just control it, and I can forgive it because it's live. I can't stop it. All live. Nothing I can edit out. So maybe if I can find a way to do that. But right now, it's just live. So, and then what ended up happening was we went through a really nice phase when it first started. The first time any comic book character was really taken seriously in a serious form for a movie was, I believe, Richard Donner, when he directed the first Superman movie, which I love. If you guys don't know, let me just show my pride. Where are they? Ah, here they are. As you guys know, I've mentioned this in some of my reviews, this has been like sort of my superhero revival. I sort of like got sick of superheroes for a while because there was so much of it around, discovering other movies, getting back into Star Wars a lot again, discovering new stuff. But now I'm back into my superhero phase. I decided, why not? Let's buy some comic books. Let's get back into reading them. And my favorite character, as usual, Superman. There he's in the front. I love this guy so much. I love all other characters too, but I grew up with him. He was the first superhero discovered. That's why I'm kind of more of a DC fanboy, I guess you can call me. Of course, I call them out when they fuck up. I mention it even here and then with stuff like Batman vs. Superman, Suicide Squad. I do a review on those in the future. It'd be very interesting. Just want to bring that out. And then it was one of the first movies I remember, I think, watching about superheroes, and I loved it. And apparently now I read it was the first time that it was taken ever seriously. And ever since then, you know, we're getting some more big movies, not in like as many as we get them nowadays, but here and then, specifically with DC, the ones who were killing at the time, which is surprising. Now we know how Marvel practically dominates the superhero market, getting stuff like the Batman Tim Burton movies and Richard Donner Supermans, but that was practically it. And then we went to this dark phase because, of course, eventually, I mean, they're comic book heroes. Like, we all know it's obvious nowadays, but back in the day, of course, there were really just books you would read in a very funny, different style, so no one really cared about stuff like toy making or making them into these big franchises. But when people realized, especially in Hollywood, how much money you can make off of these and how creative and fun they were for little kids, they knew they were getting their work at it. I would love to show even a toy, for example, but, you know, oh, here's one, just for Marvel. I love buying toys and all that stuff. You'll get to know me more in the future. Forgive me. So, what would happen is eventually Hollywood would get greedy. They would start making movies just to really bullshit to sell toys. It was obvious from the start. Then we went for movies like the first two Superman movies, arguably, and the first two Tim Burton Batmans, to then get stuff like Batman and Robin, Steel, Spawn, oh god, the original Fantastic Four movies, and all this crap. We just went through a dark age, just like many genres of movie in general, but comic book movies arguably suffered the most because, you know, we had like this really nice, not so big, but a golden age when it first started. You know, we were getting to know this new genre. People loved it, how serious it could be taken. Though early in the day, you know, the biggest problem is that superheroes in general, they were viewed more for kid stuff. And in a way, they still are. But it's stuff like Superman and the Batman movies, with the big box office success they would make, would prove that they can be taken more serious, not just for kids, but for everybody to enjoy. And then Hollywood, though, and most people realize, but clearly kids will love this and buy this shit more like ever, and then they would put in stuff, you know, promoting it everywhere just to sell toys and Happy Meals. You get this all around. And then in the early 2000s, we finally come in when Marvel, after all the shit that happened, we're like, alright, it's time to put our stuff in the game. We've released nothing but shitty movies, aside from Blade, which is the only movie. I'll give an exception to the late 90s. I kind of count the early 2000s because, you know, sort of at the end of the 90s, so, you know, I kind of count around there. But yeah, it was technically a movie that was good in the 90s, but aside from that, almost every other comic book movie, aside from maybe the early, it was mainly mid-90s and like late that really comic book movies started to suffer really badly. There were just really bad stuff to sell toys, all this stuff, you know, nothing really stuff that to put effort in, just bullshit that they know people would eat up, and clearly did. They made a lot of money. It was all good for them. But Marvel finally decided to do stuff and take a risk with getting a director like Sam Raimi, who was just coming out of the Evil Dead movies apparently, and then working with Sony Pictures, which we all know, even to this day, Sony just in general isn't the best at movie making. So it was a big risk to get their fantastic character that everybody loves, Spider-Man, into the big screen. And then in 2002, I own it myself, released the original Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, James Franco, and what is Mary Jane? I never remember Mary Jane. You'll get to know this about me. I can't remember all the actors/actresses' names. I always forget them. It's not around. Well, sorry, Mary Jane. No one likes you anyway. And when it came out, it was fantastic. If I had to go into detail of the movie, it'd be too long. I know it's a stream, but I don't want to go too long into that either. To keep it short, it's a great retelling of the story with some fantastic effects added in, some pretty damn solid acting, specifically from actors like J.J. Simmons, who played, you know, that very annoying boss who was very loud and smoked a cigar all the time, and, you know, didn't care if he released fake news and stuff. He just wanted to make money at the Daily Bugle. Everybody loves that guy. Even the first second he was on screen, I love the guy. He's still one of my favorite actors ever play in a comic book movie. He's amazing. Spider-Man 2, he got, like, astronomically funnier and better, but, you know, the beginning was pretty damn good. And Tobey Maguire, to this day, until I see Spider-Man Homecoming with my friends on my birthday, is still my favorite Spider-Man. Look, Andrew Garfield, which I'll mention later when I mention those movies, excuse me, did a decent job. It was pretty damn good. What he had to work with, he did a good Spider-Man. For me, Tobey Maguire is still that very loser, awkward, teen hormone go through like kid that we can all relate to, and is just trying to get to the times of being a kid and go into the adult world despite how shy and how he was picked on, and still trying to deal with it and being this nerdy type kid with these amazing superpowers. He did that so well for me. I was convinced that he was this loser, he didn't have many friends, he wasn't very popular, but he loved what he was doing, and he still had this passion for science, being a geek, a nerd, and then when he got these powers, there's something amazing to him, and throughout the story we get to learn it, and it was just so well done. And though a lot of people, even when the villain Green Goblin came out, a lot of people would usually criticize him, but I honestly love him. He's still one of my favorite villains throughout the Spider-Man movies. I mean, we complain now, but it didn't get as bad as Spider-Man 3. A lot of people complain of the suit, but I mean, did you see The Amazing Spider-Man 2? How bad that one was? Don't complain that easily. I honestly think they did a perfect job. It was the most realistic version of Green Goblin, honestly, they could have done. For me, it totally makes sense for some guy, technically, for a comic book movie, of course, to, you know, become insanely violent and filled with rage, and just get this really big metallic suit that apparently just looked like a goblin and was green, you know, to go out and attack the streets with his technology because he was a scientist. You know, it made more sense. The story was played out well, fantastic acting, honestly, for most of the cast. Great story, told all well, some fantastic effects, even for the times. Remember, these were the 2000s, the early 2000s. This was honestly the breakout for CGI and special effects. You know, especially in the early days, a lot of people hated CGI because, you know, at the time there was a new thing people were loving, and stuff like Jurassic Park, and even the Phantom Menace, despite all the hate it can get, was proving it could be something amazing. But most of the time they were used, really lazy, even though, of course, some effort was put into it. It was very easy to make, because practical effects, of course, would be way harder to do, to pull those off in real life. Just add some shitty computer graphics. Oh, there we go, add the little effects there, have some fun. But of course they look goddamn terrible when it would finally come out. But these were one of the big times, especially in the early 2000s, that they were showing the amazing stuff they can do. Yeah, nowadays there's some outdated scenes you can see throughout the movie here and there, but most of the damn effects, even for me, I gotta admit, are pretty damn solid. I'm still convinced a lot of that stuff happened, and it looks really damn good, even for nowadays standards. This was a big breakout for a lot of the effects. If I would give my score to Spider-Man, I would personally give the original one an 8.5, because you know how I usually rate movies. I only give 10 out of 10, if you guys wonder. It's only for movies that, for me, did something, a big breakout, or its own standalone, you know, memorable performances, or something memorable to remember throughout the decades to make it stand out as its very strong movie. Mainly stuff, it's usually stuff like that they break out in the industry, or do a big change that forever changed the way how we make movies, or the way we think of movies, or even starting a brand new genre. Something I would love to bring up is one of my favorite movies, Star Wars, that did a huge breakout in effects and fantasy worlds, and even in stuff like creating big franchises to sell millions of toys and make a bunch of sequels and create this ginormous universe for everyone to love, and started the whole blockbuster modern-like feel. For me, that clearly did a massive change in the movie industry to deserve why it's still so memorable and still remembered and watched to this day. That for me is clearly, at least with A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, a 10 out of 10. Spider-Man, though, despite an amazing movie and breakout stuff, didn't really do anything amazing compared to the other comic book movies that I'm comparing them to that came out earlier. Still a damn good movie for its time, but you know, it's not like we didn't get a movie with breakout effects and a great story and a great actors and great characters to love and other movies that came out before Spider-Man, like the Tim Burton Batman movies and the Richard Donner Superman movies. Those were also great in their own rights, and you know how they broke out in effects and brought these characters to life. So, though despite its own respects and credit where credit is due, I'm going to give it an 8.5. But then we go into my personal favorite, Spider-Man 2. To this day, until once again I watched Spider-Man Homecoming, my favorite Spider-Man movie of all time. Even these are like the rare exceptions where my family and I, despite them usually hating everything geeky and nerdy or like fantasy like, that we can actually all watch and enjoy. I mean, probably because we grew up with these movies when they were coming out. I know I grew up with them while they were coming out. So, you know, we can all understand them more, you know, despite, instead of watching like a movie that came out like 50, 40, 30 years ago, that they just, I don't care about that movie. Well, they were alive when this came out, so it was a big deal to everybody. And like everybody expected, excuse me, God, my voice is gonna fuck up at the end of this. That's why I do this stuff. Everyone expected this movie to fail. Most people do. Sequels never turn out as good, especially most movies that are being made by Sony, and especially such a big risk like Spider-Man, because the most superhero movies came out. It was really the Spider-Man and the X-Men movies that were really the big deals in the early 2000s when it comes to comic book movies. And we didn't have stuff like the Christopher Nolan Batman yet, or not even close to the Marvel Cinematic Universe that we have nowadays, or even some DC movies in respects that we had. It was really just the few Marvel movies that Marvel was releasing, with that selling their properties to stuff like Fox and Sony. So when this movie came out, and surprise, surprise, it was even better than the first one, arguably to most people, including me, it was a pretty damn big deal. Now, to cut it short, of course, not that it really wasn't anything groundbreaking once again, you know, it didn't do anything to like, wow, it's like, let's say Batman Begins to the Dark Knight style, like its own, like it could be like its own amazing movie on its own. It still has all the same likable qualities, despite the problems like with the first one, its corniness, maybe some a bit outdated effects compared to nowadays. But it's really, for me, what makes this movie special. It's literally its little moments. It's some special scenes that it has that are so damn good that could even be considered some of the best comic book movie moments of all time, with stuff like the iconic train scene, or even my personal favorite, Doc Octopus's transformation scene throughout the movie. You know, when he's in the hospital and they're trying to, you know, cut his tentacles off. Sorry, arms would be way too destructive. And Sam Raimi does this really cool style, because like I said, the reason I mentioned it, he worked back in the day in the Evil Dead movies. I mentioned that because throughout the Spider-Man movies, you could tell he loves to sort of kind of reference and do like little, you know, referencing to the old work and styles that he would do in those movies, and create these horror-like effects. And that one scene, look it up on YouTube. Of course, I can't show it. I'll get a copyright strike, and this is live. So it's this amazing movie with no music added in it. It's just the horror and the few shots of, you could see what these claws and or tentacles. Sorry, I like calling them all these other names. Tentacles just sound so weird for a human being. How they attack the doctors and everyone's freaking out. They're getting murdered, being thrown up into the ceilings, being electrocuted. It's crazy, and it looks damn amazing. Look it up on YouTube. Just look up Dr. Octopus Transformation Spider-Man 2. Excuse me. Alright, looks like a fantastic moment in the movie, and it's really moments like that that just have such strong moments compared to the first one, despite having all the good qualities that the first one already have, builds upon it with this amazing story of Tobey Maguire, once again starred as Peter Parker, learning to deal with now being in the adult world and being Spider-Man at the same time, with now trying to have a girlfriend, apparently trying to get with Mary Jane, despite being scared of what Spider-Man can do, clearly still wants to get with her. And keeping Aunt May happy now that she's alone and no longer with Ben, because of course, if you know the Spider-Man story, I didn't have to mention it because everyone should know by now, Uncle Ben dies. It's obvious, you know, that's not really a spoiler. I'm pretty sure even the new movies are going to talk a bit about that, because clearly Uncle Ben isn't around there, unless he doesn't exist in this universe. I'm so sorry, my voice misses up. I'm sick right now, or at least I believe I'm getting sick. So, and then what will happen around there is now we're seeing him deal with the stuff of being Spider-Man / being Peter Parker. And it's almost this conflict, and it gets so bad that it even seems that he starts to lose his powers because of the conflict. Now, at first, I never understood, actually, when the movie came out. I didn't like it too much compared to the first one. I was wondering, well, why the hell would he lose his powers like that? It makes no sense. But if you pay attention throughout the movie and how they sort of reference what's going to happen, sort of foreshadowing, when he talks to Dr. Octopus before he becomes, I always forget his name once, forgive me once again. I can't really criticize movies and like how memorable the names are if you can remember performances, because I forget stuff in general. I'm just not good at remembering stuff. I have to put alarms for everything. Forgive me if I can't remember any actor or any character name. It just happens. So Dr. Octopus before Dr. Octopus is going to be called throughout the stream. He references how when you have something like wanting to love somebody and just holding this problem in your chest for so long, it's going to eventually hurt you and cause damages and other things you do in your life. Foreshadowing how eventually he starts losing his powers of being Spider-Man for how stressed out he is of trying to deal with his normal life and being Spider-Man at the same time. it just does build a fantastic story and excellent continuation to the first movie that did it so well. So once again, amazing performances by J.J. Simmons, for example, with iconic moments like his iconic laugh scene. Who doesn't know that laugh? Even when I first watched it again, because of course now that the new one's coming out, I want to watch all the other Spider-Man movies again to sort of hype up for it, like what I do with Star Wars movies. I watch all the movies before, for example, The Last Jedi is going to come out. I'll watch all the other movies again to sort of get hyped up, get all the movies refreshed into my mind, so when I watch this movie, it's all fresh in my mind again. So I watched 1 and 2. I haven't watched 3. I'm going to watch it tonight, though I still remember, through in my little head, because it was such a big event, because I watched the movie like around the first week it was out. And I watched it a billion other times, of course, in TV, or bought it years ago. I just sold it, because we moved and stuff, personal stuff. So I know the movie very well. And it was such a fantastic movie with the second one. Of course, we're going back into that, of how well it played its characters, how well it played those very strong moments that, for me, it managed to stand out and be stronger than the second one, really because of those really strong moments that it had. For example, like I always mention, the scenes. Any scene with Dr. Octopus for me was amazing. Even despite that one scene, after that amazing, Evil Dead reference scene where he becomes Dr. Octopus with that Vader-like scream of going, no! I can forgive that because, the reason we hate the Darth Vader scene, because Darth Vader was already known to be the stone-cold badass with seeming no heart or no emotions. And forgive me, I just got an alarm. This is live for a reason, guys. Let me silence this. Alright. Jesus, my voice is gonna fuck up by the end of this. I'm sorry for the cussing. So, once again, going back into, let's see if I can refresh my mind. Dr. Octopus, despite that one scene, once again, with Darth Vader, the reason the Darth Vader scene doesn't work because Darth Vader was already built up to be a character with no emotion, and then when he does that baby-like scream, it just doesn't convince you at all. But with Dr. Octopus, this is the first time you get to know him, so he could be whatever he wants. He could be a whiny little bitch, he could be a stone-cold badass, it doesn't matter. We're discovering him, we didn't see him in other movies and know how his character is. We're learning his character for the first time, so I forgive that scene. So, then, outside of that, the movie is strong enough. I don't want to spoil the entire movie. Of course, I want you guys to watch it, and I don't want to, once again, talk too much into the movie and all the other movies and why I dislike them or love them. So, you get to have fun watching them by yourself. I already mentioned it. Great story. It practically has all the great qualities that the first one had, but an amazing continuation to it and some really strong moments to watch in the movie. Well, of course, I didn't mention also that I'll just give a quick, brief explanation of the train scene. The battle with Dr. Octopus, where he has to stop that train in New York before it crashes out of the city and falls, and all those people go to their miserable death, and he just stops. It's just a fantastic scene. You get Tobey Maguire's hilarious as hell poop face, which once again is so memorable of this movie, how many hilarious faces he does through it. One of my favorites is the scream that he does at the final battle with Dr. Octopus when he creates that weird fusion machine that's supposed to suck up everything in New York City, and then he does that iconic scream with his face. It looks ridiculous when I do it, but when you watch the movie, it's like 100 times funnier. Once again, look it up on YouTube or watch the movie yourself. You're going to have a blast watching that movie. All around, though, it's just a fantastic movie to watch. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It's so good, and it can even, I still put it up there with one of the best comic book movies of all time. Even with all the fantastic movies that we get nowadays with Marvel. That they do so well. Captain America Civil War, The Avengers. I'll put Spider-Man 2 in there. I still love watching that movie. I don't get bored of it. I'm always on the edge of my seat. I love going through the story. There's even some moments that you can get very emotional of if you're that much of a baby like I am. But hey, we all have our different experiences. You don't have to agree with me. I can understand how people mostly consider that both of the first two are very strong and almost equally good, but I think there's so many just more stronger moments in the second one that it manages to be more superb compared to the first one. And then after those two fantastic movies, you expect for the final ending, apparently, it's supposed to be the conclusion to this saga, this trilogy now, be a perfect movie, right? I mean, what can go wrong? Everything. You see, Sam Raimi, of course, had a vision. He clearly knew what he was doing. If he made two fantastic movies and the sequel managed to surpass the first one, he clearly had know what the fuck he was doing with this character. But Sony always has to mess things up. They want to get their greedy little hands and everything. Because, remember, especially nowadays, if I'm correct, they really haven't had a big franchise with this much success aside from Spider-Man. All three of the movies, not even just these first two, broke box office records for their time. They were big deals. So Sony knew this wasn't any little small thing they had. They were having massive success. They could now be compared to big companies like even Disney or freaking Lucasfilms or stuff with the success they were having with this franchise. And they knew that if these movies were finally going to end, they want to squeeze the milk out of it as much as they can and all the money they can possibly get. So they want to appeal to the fans as much as they want with all the demands they were getting, like getting characters like Venom in, or even because they want to be funny because, you know, all their comedy movies work so well with shit like Adam Sandler, Kevin Smith. Though Seth Rogen personally is a personal favorite of mine. And, you know, those usually work. So it's like, oh, why wouldn't it work in a Spider-Man movie? Let's add that in there. Let's slap it all in, Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi even admitted in interviews he didn't want to do it. That was a big problem, that Sony wanted to add a bunch of crap that wasn't in the original plan of the movie. It's like, no, I have a vision. I want this to end this certain way. But he had to because they were funding the movie. So it's like, well, I can't say no to this. I gotta allow it. So, as much as the movie, spoiler alert, kind of sucked, I don't hate Sam Raimi for it. I don't think it's his fault. He clearly had a vision. Sony is the one to blame here, as usual, honestly, with the shit they fuck up. Honestly, outside of PlayStation, I own a PS4. I love PlayStation, the amazing stuff they do. Outside of that, especially with stuff like Sony Pictures, they really don't know what the fuck they're doing. As soon as they get a big success or get something right, they always want to screw it up because of their greed. And they did it with the third one. Spider-Man 3 was, even with all the stuff that happened, you know, this was, fun fact, one of the most expensive movies, even to this day, ever made. Almost costing, if I'm correct, like almost $200 million. Because especially at the time, to shoot a scene in New York, I read, could go up to like $2 million per day. They spent a lot of money in this, not counting, even despite these two having some pretty damn revolutionary effects, the third one was the true one to go the most expensive, with even revolutionizing CGI effects with characters like Sandman with the particle effects that they want to add. So it cost a pretty penny or two to make. So it was a big deal for these movies to really just screw up and let us all down. Despite all that though, like my friend Kevin, as you can see live, can say, I don't think it's a terrible movie. I know that's crazy. Spider-Man fanboys, relax. Don't kill me. I'm not saying the movie's perfect. It's obvious that it has problems. But I compare Spider-Man 3 like I compare the Star Wars prequels. You can enjoy them. They are watchable. Maybe aside from episode 2. But they are watchable. You can watch the entire movie and at least go through it without sleeping. Without wanting to leave. Aside from some very bad moments. But calling it one of the worst movies of all time, like a lot of people do, I think is ridiculous. Look, the movie is very disappointing. It's one of the most disappointing movies of all time. It's a perfect example of a big disappointment after such success upon success a movie can have. But I don't care how much you hate it, like some websites and critics have, it is nowhere near one of the worst movies ever made. No, I'm sorry. There is so much to love in that movie, so much to honor and respect that they did so well. Once again, the effects, the action scenes, to start with that, they always fucking killed it there. Sam Raimi always knew what he was doing, how he shot the action scenes and the scenes with Spider-Man and the villains around it. He was a wizard behind the camera with the shit he did, like in Spider-Man 1 and 2. The amazing shots that you saw, how he would get Spider-Man swinging around, getting these 360-like views, and these crazy-ass turns. It's just so much, it's amazing. It's just amazing. You have to watch it to get what I'm saying. Me describing it how awkward and making no sense I can will not give it the fucking credit it deserves. And they even surpassed that in the third one. And there's still some really strong moments. As much as you can find personally wrong with Sandman's character and his story, I loved it. He clearly had a big plan for this character, but because they had to add stuff like Venom and all these other subplots with stuff like Gwen Stacy and the creation of Venom, you know, with stuff like Eddie and all these characters, he had to change stuff up. And of course, Sony adding their stupid comedy. It's really the beginning, the first part of the movie. They can tell some things are wrong, but it's really the strongest parts. You know, despite that weird moment when, to start with, the biggest problem is when that black thing that's eventually supposed to turn Spider-Man, but you know, into his black suit and sort of change to his dark side, they start messing it up where they don't even explain at all why that happened. It came down from the sky because it was never explained. They literally never explain it. They kind of reference that, you know, the doctors are trying to find, and they just don't, literally, they say they don't know where it came from, they don't know how it works, be careful, it's dangerous. They don't explain at all what happened with it. I get what they were going for, but it just made no sense movie-wise to just throw this clearly big important thing, this big, story-changing moment, and not even explain it well. That's a pretty big fucking deal. Harry losing his memory, a lot of people also complain about. I don't think it's such a big deal compared to all the other problems of the movies, but I get why people complain. It's like the whole, it was all just a dream sort of cliche. It's very annoying. It's a very lazy storytelling, but it doesn't ruin the movie. It still works throughout the rest of the movie. in the end, there's a lot of solid enough moments to keep this movie interesting, fun. Well, not interesting, exciting, fun to watch. But there's a lot of disappointments. For me specifically, it's the middle part of the movie. It's really the beginning, middle, and end. The middle part of the movie is where it really suffers with stuff when, you know, Peter turns into this bad boy like I'm trying to do with the shitty leather jacket, where he, instead, after he turns into his black suit, of course, it more fuels it by rage and anger and emo-like feelings that Hot Topic lovers would probably have. And we see Peter's now iconic emo Peter phase, which just is god-awful. I get what they were going for, and a lot of people could understand. You know, it makes sense. Even my friends explained that, you know, and I always knew it, that, he's doing that because, of course, he has to change himself if he's going to be more this angry and more diehard and, you know, shoot first, ask questions later, like superhero, like Batman in a way, just by him having his rule not to kill, maybe aside from Batfleck. And we had to see that this has to also affect his regular life. But why would that be being a douchebag, and, well, not a douchebag, acting like a cool guy and dancing around in jazz clubs and trying to hit on girls? That wouldn't make no sense. What made sense, and warning, this might get dark, this was always my vision of what I think they could have done to give, to sell you on this and do a great delivery on a performance showing that Peter is changing in his character and how this weird goo stuff that's never explained and that now turns him into Black Spider-Man is changing and ruining his life for the worst. I thought my personal vision always was that we can add stuff of how he starts to abuse Aunt May or Mary Jane and stuff. He becomes very violent and very aggressive. Stuff like, I know this might be crazy, but even hitting women, that's crazy. I know people are usually against it, so it wouldn't make sense because he's not supposed to be a good person. He's supposed to be fueled by anger, and he even fucking does it. By the end of his emo phase, he hits Mary Jane, and then she says, like, what are you turning into? Why didn't they show more of that throughout I'm gonna call it the sequence of him becoming an emo or this more depressed and raged person? You know, I think that would make 100% sense to turn into this more dark, evil character. But they never explore it. They just show some really weird fucking scenes, clearly Sony trying to do their weird comedy moments, and this is played throughout a lot of the movie. For me, that's not even the worst stuff. I'm just mentioning it because it's such a big part of the movie, which really brings down the movie as a whole. Those big moments where they could have gone so much into exploring the dangers and the changes he's turning himself into, where he's this raged person and he doesn't care about people anymore, even how awkward or how much little respect he would get, he still loved people and cared for them. And in the second one, we saw tried his best to keep them happy. But instead, they just show him to be an emo, very emotional kid who loves to dance around in jazz clubs and even hump to the camera. It just made no fucking sense. But for me, the true worst moment of this movie, which is a perfect example that Sony just threw in stuff into this movie that just made no fucking sense, was specifically this part where they were trying to add in this subplot that Mary Jane Watson and Harry were like, Harry specifically wanted to get back at Peter because he was getting his memories back again, wanted to get back at Peter Parker, what he did to him, apparently, because now, of course, in Spider-Man 2, we learn, he learns that he was Spider-Man because, I don't want to spoil too much, but some stuff happens, and then he learns he wants to get revenge on him for blank reason. Watch the movie. And then he wants to cheat on, he wants to get his girlfriend, Mary Jane, so she can be cheating on him and can get him pissed off or get him very sad. And then there's literally like 5 to 10 minute scene where they're literally dancing to, I forget the artist, this just old like 50s, 60s music where they're just dancing around and cooking. A big part to the movie. It could be, I guess, okay if it's like 30 seconds, little quick montage of showing what they're doing together and how they're having fun. But it has this entire big moment that it's just them dancing around. What the fuck? I never understood that. I swear to God, even when I watch that movie, I swear it just sort of takes you out into the movie. People always make jokes about it. It feels like they just take you out into from the movie and throw you into some romantic comedy. It makes no sense. Like, it just takes you out of the entire experience of a Spider-Man story. It just, for me, made no sense. And that, the movie a lot suffers through it. But aside from all the criticism I can bring, which I don't want to concentrate too much on it, I'll go more into detail in other movies. I haven't even mentioned the Amazing Spider-Man ones yet. There's just a lot of problems, but there's still enough good experiences to enjoy, and I still recommend. I still think it's a solid it's a decent enough conclusion where if you watch all 3 movies, you're like, okay, I'm satisfied. Now I know how the story ends. I'm happy enough with it. You're gonna be very disappointed though with how amazing the movie could have been. Clearly, like they clearly had a vision. They clearly had so much potential with the stuff they're bringing in. But it really suffers, in my opinion, in conclusion, with way too many characters thrown at us, way too many subplots, and big parts of the movie not even being explained at all, in so many unnecessary moments. I know people in the comments already saying, Game Pass, like, no, they didn't. I get it, it's a joke, guys. It's funny. It's just my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. Like I said, I still enjoy the movie despite all I can hate on it. But I gotta agree and understand when I clearly see moments that have their problems. If I had to give my score, I'm gonna give it... It really honestly took me a long time. I was really struggling thinking what to give it. I know people give it 5s and 6s. Some love it and give it 8s and 7s. But I've decided I'm gonna give this movie to a 6 or a 6.5. It's really around there. So it's practically what I consider decent. Strong enough, enjoyable enough to watch, and especially to the trilogy, definitely the worst one out of the 3. If you really take out, the points and the facts and what happens in the story and how well they're delivered and what you learn from the characters and how well they portray them, the first 2 are clearly way stronger. And if you want to avoid the movie altogether, that's the sad part. You can really watch these 2 and ignore it, which I did in the beginning. I realized I really didn't need to watch the 3rd one, which was sad, because there's so much wrong with it that if you watch the other 2, they're strong enough on their own to be like, yeah, this is the conclusion, He dealt with all the struggles in the 2nd one. He finally learned how to balance them out and understand that sometimes life just sucks. You gotta deal with it. It's a perfect ending. You didn't need the 3rd one in the end. It's funny now that I even read that they've been trying to make a 4th movie, but Sam Raimi, of course, I know he clearly knew what was going on. He hated the movie himself, as he admitted in interviews. He was smart enough to clearly leave. I was like, fuck you, Sony, I'm not working with you anymore. Hell no, I'm out of here. I'm gonna do my other stuff if I want to. I'm done with you. And then, that was pretty much the end of the original Spider-Man saga. I was calling it saga because, of course, we're gonna have a 4th one, ending the trilogy name. So, it eventually just ended off with the trilogy. Then we come into the Marvel Cinematic Universe years. Marvel was finally starting to create, they're making this big movie called The Avengers that now, despite they were already planning this with the beginning with the first movie, Iron Man, they were finally going to connect all their characters into this one big movie. After Captain America came out, clearly linking all of them, they were going to make it, and they want to add all the characters they could into their universe. They were first going to start with, of course, they were going to bring characters like Spider-Man. But Sony, of course, like I said, this was their most successful franchise, arguably to date so far, that they've ever had. They weren't going to give up that easily. And the weirdest part is, they decided just be like, you know what, let's reboot the franchise. Yeah, we're not giving it to you guys. We'll have an excuse and be like, no, we're too busy making movies on Spider-Man. And it just made no sense, because then when you watch the movies, you realize, what the hell was the point of them? What I think about when remakes or reboots are made is when there's a need to make them. When there's something, like they're clearly outdated, or there's problems with the movie, or now it just doesn't look as good compared to the modern works we have. So it makes sense to update it. But the reason was that these movies were literally... The last movie, Spider-Man 3, came out 5 years ago after the new rebooted one came out. So there was no reason. There was nothing to build on. They were still strong enough in story-wise. They still had some pretty damn amazing effects, so you have no excuse in saying it looks outdated. There's just nothing to build it off of. Excuse me, I gotta go get some water. I'll be right back. Stream. Okay. Fucking bottle right here. Alright guys, sorry, just need to go get some water. I have my little bottle outside. Alright, going back into the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Now, honestly, first concentrating on the first one, it's a good movie. It honestly is. Concentrating on the good stuff first, Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone's performances are amazing. I love them. I still think, despite I enjoy Tobey Maguire more still, I still think Andrew Garfield did a fantastic job with what he was given. Emma Stone arguably better than Mary Jane Watson, playing, what originally was in the 3rd one, Gwen Stacy again, doing an amazing job. You care for this relationship. They were so adorable together. So much well. But my biggest problem with the rebooted franchise, already starting with, it was kind of going to be obvious. There was really nothing new. And that's my biggest problem. With the first one that I think is a good movie, and I think arguably better than the 3rd one, there was really nothing interesting. I mean, be honest, and especially what sucked is when they promoted the movie, because Sony knew this, it really wouldn't make sense to reboot them. We just had the last one 5 years ago. we expect, alright, if you're going to make a new one, then tell us a new story. Give us something new. They practically, literally, even in moments, took the exact same story that we got in the Sam Raimi movies. What was the point? The second one was when they finally changed it up, but arguably everyone already agrees the second one sucks. I never finished the movie. I've only seen clips and the ending to it because my cousins were watching it at their house. I saw the beginning and the end part of the movie because then I left. I watched the rest of the clips. I watched reviews. Most people can agree it's a very messed up movie. Kind of suffered what Spider-Man 3 had, but went even harder with it. Too much weird moments, way too many subplots, way too many characters thrown at it. So yeah, I would give that movie, from what I've heard, I would give it a 6 solid right now, because I don't know if it's that terrible. I haven't fully watched it yet. Maybe I might give a review in the future. But going on the first one that I have seen, my biggest problem with it, of course, especially when the movie was coming out, alright, I was in Peru. A lot of my family was over there, you know, some personal stuff happened. My teachers were even excited to watch this movie. And the promotion showed us, because, like, what made sense to most of us, that they were going to tell us a brand new story, a new retelling of the Spider-Man movies. But they didn't even do that. When they fooled us with promotion. The whole thing was, with the promotion, I remember specifically, if I can refresh my mind, was that, excuse me, we were supposed to get the story of what happened to Peter's parents. Why were they not around? Why were they never around? What happens to them? Peter learns about their origins. They kind of brought that into the movie, but practically the rest was just a retelling of the Spider-Man origin story. What was the point of it if we literally got the same thing literally less than 10 years ago at the time? No, it was literally about to be 10 years ago by that time. There was nothing new to give us. It would have made, now it makes so much sense, even though it was even less years that we're getting a new movie, that we're getting Homecoming, the only thing I have to show it. It makes sense why we're getting this one, because now it isn't just retelling the story, it's going to connect to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So we're getting the Spider-Man in the Cinematic Universe version. So it's going to connect to all these other movies and even be continuing his story with all the other characters. So it makes sense. They're going to add him into this new universe, not just retell the story. Amazing Spider-Man movies were just to retell them. I understand you could like the first one. A lot of people even say they like that more than the Sam Raimi movies. I personally disagree, but I guess I'm a Sam Raimi fanboy when it comes to Spider-Man movies, of course. But I just really don't understand what's to enjoy that. Maybe I understand why people like it, of course, of being a millennial, for a lot of kids that were growing up around the time watching those movies, and those being the movies that they were personally growing up with, they could just see that as their Spider-Man movies. But with people like us, I bet if they grew up around our time seeing these ones, they would completely understand what we were complaining about and saying, what was the point? I really never understood it, specifically with the first one. It's a great movie. There's a lot of great stuff, specifically in the performances of Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. I love it. They do a really good job. And now I'm really happy, of course, that they're doing stuff like Hacksaw Ridge and La La Land they did specifically last year that I personally love. They're like, Hacksaw Ridge is one of my favorite war movies of all time. La La Land, though, I'm flipping you off, I'm so sorry. La La Land, though, once again, I gave my review. I think it was a bit overrated with all the extreme praise that was getting, with even, like, getting nominated for, like, costume design, where a lot of people agree they were just wearing regular, like, pretty average clothes. You know, they're pretty dresses and nice tuxedos and suits, but, you know, compared to other movies, it did nothing special. It made more sense, like, why Suicide Squad, I think it was, that got, like, best Oscar for costume design, or I think it was makeup and design, but you get what I'm trying to say. So, they clearly did greater stuff after that, but, you know, they did some great stuff in it. And I'm not saying that's where they started, but, you know, I'm saying that's what I personally saw them start with. So, it's great to then experience him in other way better movies and way greater works, because this one, for me, just made no sense. But that was it, and thank God they ended it. I even heard stuff that they were even going to plan a third one, which thank God they didn't. I was not excited to watch these movies. I'm going to be honest. When The Amazing Spider-Man was announced, I was always there with the fans saying, I don't get why it was being made. I was completely going to understand when they said they might connect it with the Cinematic Universe movies, but then they said, nope, Sony's rebooting the entire franchise again. We're getting a new story. I was never there. I saw them, you know, most of it at least, but I just never was excited, because I was like, should I watch these if I can watch these two, technically, if we're going for 1 and 2 again, and they're 10 times better, and it's the original form that they were told, and were pretty damn important, so you can even respect it history-wise, which I love watching movies for a lot. So that was really it. If I had to give the score for The Amazing Spider-Man, the first one, I know this is crazy, it's clearly a good movie, you can enjoy it a lot, especially if that's your introduction to the Spider-Man world, watching that movie. But once again, my biggest problems with it is that most of the movie was pretty much a retelling, a remake of the first Spider-Man from Sam Raimi. There was really nothing new to get out of it aside from changing the names up and adding a tiny as hell subplot of Peter learning more about his parents. A completely misleading marketing campaign, by the way, to fool us into thinking, yeah, we're gonna get a new story. That's why so many people watched it and excited already, because simply we're getting a new Spider-Man and getting a new story. Who wouldn't get excited? But it was not that at all. I would give it, I know it's crazy, but I was thinking of first giving it a 7, honestly, but I'm like, no, I just can't enjoy the movie. This is in my personal opinions. You don't have to agree with them. Like, I can clearly see when I give my opinion on Spider-Man 3, you, Kevin, specifically, or, you know, some of the people in the comments are like, no, you're fucking liars, shut the fuck up. Just relax, it's my opinion. I'm gonna have to give The Amazing Spider-Man a 6.5. It's a great movie, all in all. You can enjoy a lot of it. It's solid enough. But my biggest problem with it, me personally as a fan, it just did nothing new to make me excited to not just want to go watch the first one again, you know? And I guess in a way you can appreciate it for that. And the second one, I just gave it a solid 6. I don't know if it's worse or not. I've only seen the beginning and then some clips. Clearly there's a lot of problems with it, I've heard. But I'm not going to give my full 100% score if I haven't seen the entire movie. So I usually give movies solid 6s that I haven't seen yet, because it could go all the way down or all the way up, you know? You never know. Or just stay around that middle part. So that's my thoughts on the entire Spider-Man, you know, kind of saga, I guess you can call it. I don't know really what I call it. It's really the last Spider-Man movies that we've had in our time, from the early 2000s to now the 2010s. It's very interesting what they've done with this character and what they have, and now I can't wait to see him once again shine on July 8th when I go personally see it in Spider-Man Homecoming. From what I've heard of the critics, which I'm very excited of, which I always usually like to read what the critics say before movies. I usually trust their opinions more, mainly because I relate to them so much more. Specifically, some of them, to be exact. Like, one of my favorites is Chris Tuckman, for example, I'll to bring up. And from what I've heard from them, it's a damn good story. They tell us a different thing, and it makes so much sense why it's out. And Tom Holland apparently does a fantastic performance as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. So I can't wait to see how they bring it up. It'd be very curious. And when that movie comes out, I'm of course going to do a review. I might do a live again. This was honestly really fun to do. I've never done any review live. Maybe I should start doing more reviews like this where I can just do almost hour-long videos. Holy shit. Well, in my defense, I talked about 5 different movies. Like, these usual reviews when I just do one is like 20. Like, this is damn impressive. I did 5 movies in the time spans of 2. Not even. Yeah, 2 or 1.5. So, yeah, I really have fun doing this, guys. I know, once again, of course, this is all 100% unscripted. I pretty much just, I would only use notes from the script I had, but I thought it'd be fun. I want to get this out today just in case my voice ends up messing up tomorrow morning and I don't have time to do it tomorrow and I end up losing all the plan. New videos coming out all over summer, guys. I always have so many new ideas, new videos coming out, new content coming out for you guys to watch. Summer is my biggest time when I do the most videos, or the best quality videos I have, because I have so much time to do. Check it out, especially around July is when I upload the most stuff. There's a lot of stuff I'm going to do with gaming, movies, more geeky stuff, more live streams. I'm going to do a lot of games that I haven't planned, or new different styles that I'm doing games, or topic videos, or journalism videos where I talk about stuff like movies and stuff that I'm passionate about, and get my opinions on them in the best I can. This is really fun to do this 5 movie review, guys. I really enjoyed this. I can't believe it was almost 50 minutes long. I managed to pull this off. I actually expected this to be like 2 hours. Thank you all for watching. If you stayed up this late, you guys are amazing. I can't wait to see the new Spider-Man Homecoming. What did you think about the movies I reviewed? I love to hear your thoughts and your scores down in the comments. That's why I mainly do these videos, to hear your guys' opinions. I just give mine, and I share it to the community, and then you guys share back to me. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. New videos coming out, once again, as I said, over the summer. Have a great night, pretty much, because it's all at night. Love you guys. Woo!